to the rationalinvestor.com's daily brief. The answer to your question is learn the goddamn process, trade your trading plans, don't take too much risk on any one trade, and just let yourself get rich. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the rationalinvestor.com's daily brief. A little bit of a brain fart here, literally just before I wanted to load up this video. So I'm a little bit flustered right now. Google has pulled a fast one on here, and I can't access stuff that I would normally talk with you guys about and review things like the emails and stuff like that. So always fun. 21st century, how these companies basically have us by the short and curlies. There's not really much we can do. So I'm not quite sure what kind of report I can give you guys here, girls and houseplants, today. Jesus, that's very, very frustrating. Of course, this all happens because I'm trying to like be busy in the market, and you're like, okay, Brian, I don't really care. Let's get on with the report. So anyway, I don't know what kind of job I can do here for you today, everybody. Sorry. I was super looking forward to talking to all of you guys too. Oh well. Okay, where is our itinerary? See, I even see it looks like maybe my assistant here is kind of off the game here as well. So do we have the little itinerary on the screen? Are we not putting it back up on the screen there so people can see? I guess not. I would, we don't need to talk about this now, but all right, so I guess I'll just put this like that. All right, so what are we going to try and talk about here today? Let's see if I can get that page back up on the screen. Wow, what a train wreck this is turning into. I don't even know whether you can see my screen because I still see it over there. Oh yeah, looks like all right, well, should I just hang up now and just go back to bed? I think so. Anyway, we would normally talk a little bit about the breadth. Econs today, we had a big employment data report. Maybe take a look at the broader indexes and US dollar. We'll take a look, of course, at Bitcoin and crypto. Interesting to see some of the tech stocks really breaking out here. Is this another one of these, nifty 50 kind of market scenarios? Seeing lots of talk about there's only, I think there's like 7 stocks or something that are basically driving, I think about 60-70% of the gains of the market for 2024. So I think we're seeing a continuation of that. I did have some interesting election results come out of the UK overnight. So it looks like Great Britain, if it still is that, United Kingdom, I'm not quite sure what they call themselves these days. They're moving to the left. Well, it looks like the rest of the world is moving to the right. Go figure. And I also noticed that the metals seem to be jumping up nicely, probably on this employment data. But I do think to a certain degree, this is a lot of seasonality. I had mentioned this in the Wall Street silver discussion interview that I had with Ivan there the other day. Hope you all had a chance to review that, but it does look like that seasonal bottom's coming in there on a lot of those commodities. And actually, it's interesting that TRI commodity breadth was looking extremely bullish there. So this might actually be a situation where we have commodities move up, but we also might have the bond market move up at the same time. I remember quite long ago we had that scenario, so we'll see if that plays out over time. But I suppose let's just get into this. And if we could, let's try and have that itinerary on the screen there for people to sort of see whether I'm following along and what to expect next. going forward. First things first, breadth data. Breadth data. It's interesting, the broader market is not happy here at all. And coming out of today's that's not what I wanted. My computer's like totally effed up right now too. I mean, it's just, don't be surprised if you see like black screens and stuff here as I'm doing this. Where is, no, that's not the page I want. It's over here. Hey, there we go. So if we actually look at, God, this is my life right now, it seems. All right, there we go. All right. So if we look at the broader market, it's not really that happy. I mean, that's the interesting thing about this market state. And we're back in one of those types of environments where it's just a few of the names that are pushing these big indexes higher. They make up such a huge chunk of the market that if they start moving up, they just drag the whole market with them. But notice Dow's actually just flat here, not really going anywhere. Russell 2000, that's sort of a proxy on the broader economy, 2000 stocks in the economy. You can see, I mean, there's a lot of red on the screen here. They're not really going anywhere here. And there's the NASDAQ once again, just leading the charge. And actually, if you look at some of these NASDAQ stocks in particular, we notice that Meta and AMD seem to be leading the charge here. And if we actually look at the price charts, Meta, of course, that's if I can get my computer to cooperate. $500 a share. Jesus H Christ. God, I remember there a couple of years ago, it was down at $100. That was just such a gift. Anyway, is that a cup and handle? It almost looks like it is, eh? So this guy's pointing higher. And if anything, I'm hearing talk about things like the metaverse and stuff like that, looking a little bit more attractive. Yeah, some green numbers on here. EPS seems to be, people seem to be pretty happy about that. Quarter over quarter EPS up 114%. EPS this year up 35%. Those are kind of can slim numbers. Problem is that there's no way in hell this would be a can slim stock with these kind of valuations. But looks like Mr. Zuckerberg sort of back in the zone. Mr. Zuckerberg sipped beer while surfing on the 4th of July, while Alan says he prefers to work. Okay. Not quite sure what the heck that tells us. Interesting how the EU might crap on Alan. I don't know. It's tough to say. I've noticed that when you go on Alan's platform, they really, really like to shill sort of like discontent. And I see that a lot, like they're really, really trying to push people's buttons and sort of trigger that emotional response. And I think that's half of social media's sort of bent, is how do we get people to react emotionally, which means more posts, which means more, bile. I'm sure it drives clicks, and it drives, of course, advertising revenue because of clicks. Having said that, it looks pretty bullish. Show me a new high and I'll show you something. So I don't see any reason why that stops. And then even more interesting, if we look at some of these semiconductor stocks, AMD's been on the outs a little bit, but I get the impression that they've reported some numbers that the market likes. Previous reported numbers were kind of train wrecky. But no, numbers seem to be coming in fairly strong here. At least that's sort of the rhetoric here. Interesting how this firm there in the middle of June, terrible time to become bearish on the market, the middle of June, knowing that we usually pivot the end of June, beginning of July. So I don't know whether that was such a smart move, Morgan Stanley. Anyway, so a lot of chatter here about AMD being a better bet than Intel, but regardless of your sort of stance on who's better, I mean, just look at this price chart. I don't know, does that Beamish guy ever go on about W's in price charts? So you can see the tech stocks, they're catching a bit of a bid here. But the broader market, the brick and mortar, especially things like the Russell 2000, I mean, there's just nothing going on there, which is fascinating. So I don't fault the breadth. I mean, the breadth is basically telling us that, there's just a few stocks leading. And if you invest in the broader market, man, kind of just treading water, if anything, they're kind of sanguine right now. And I suppose, this might be a interesting commentary too, as if we can get to it before I run out of time. A lot of crypto looks very, very weak, and the altcoin market very technically weak, but at the same time too, really oversold. And I think actually there's some opportunities there. But anyway, I'm the type of guy I want to buy against lows, sell against highs, basically a contrarian. So long and short of it here, breadth not overly positive, and yet we're in this kind of scenario where you might find that the stock market, come on, you piece of crap. Anyway, stock market works its way higher. Would say too that we are now in the first 2 weeks of what is this, Q3. So, we'll be watching how price performs out of the gate here. First 2 weeks of July, you can see right out of the gate, I showed you those two tech names, technology leading the charge. I actually think economy-wise, we're in the environment where maybe financials actually start outperforming. So I don't know whether I can believe that the tech stocks are going to be all the rage. I think that we're over here. And it was interesting that our screeners heading into the end of the quarter last quarter were bidding up the financials. So maybe in the after party, we'll pull up the entire Q2 report and we'll review what that first 2 week study of last quarter looked like. And did it actually help us in understanding the full quarter? So maybe we can, Chris, you can remind me in the after party. Maybe we'll spend some time doing that. All right, so breadth really not overly exciting. A few names leading the charge, and hopefully you're able to participate in those tech names as they're breaking out. Econs coming out today. It's interesting that the headlines are going to post, and I suppose in a weird sort of way, this is exactly what Mr. Biden. I mean, keep in mind, Biden is the consummate politician. I think he's half dead right now, or maybe 3/4. But he is the consummate politician. And not a big surprise that the jobs numbers actually came in a little bit better than expected. Because if you actually dig into the report, the report on the surface is going to be, non-farm payrolls headline number there, 206,000 new jobs created when the market was looking for 160. I suppose the consensus was 190, but the point here is that number came in better than expectations. And remember, we've seen this a couple times where the employment report numbers have come in a lot better than expected. But what's really interesting is when you dig into this report, and I noticed that one of our site OGs, he had pointed this out as soon as the report was released. Manufacturing payrolls actually fell. And, because of that, where was the growth? Turns out the growth was in government jobs. So knowing that things were going to be a little bit weak, did Mr. Biden maybe help the situation a little bit? Hey, go and add a few more people onto the payroll there, just so we can pad these numbers a little bit, because after all, we got to win this election, right? So interesting, non-farm payrolls, the private number actually came in 136, and interesting how that would have actually been slightly below consensus. but basically a little bit better than the what the hell's the word I'm looking for? Where did I put it? Over here. Forecast. That's the word I'm looking for. Hey, I'm pulling a Biden here on y'all. Next, I'm going to go look it. and then not say anything following. All right. Thank you, sir. China, interesting. China, ironically enough, if it wasn't for maybe the slightly padded US numbers, and keep in mind, these numbers are highly manipulated. But interesting how China actually came in with a loss of jobs when the market was actually expecting a gain of a 15. And, in a weird sort of way, China is technically supposed to be about 1/10 the size of the US economy. Of course, the idiot leader in charge here has completely opened the floodgates for immigration into Canada. And now it's at the point where a lot of these people coming to this country, they can't even find jobs. Canada never had 10 cities, never had homeless encampments. That was something that we used to always make fun of the Americans and how poorly their society is run. And now under Mr. Trudeau, we have just absolute runaway 10 cities, homeless encampments, and everything. And they keep bringing more people into the country. But what are these people going to do when they get here? Could this be? And what a surprise! These people that are coming here, they spend all their time just protesting because they don't have jobs. And oh man, it's a potion for disaster. But anyway, you've heard me talk lots about that. So kind of a report. I mean, it's interesting. The unemployment rate down in the States actually ticked up. And you can see the unemployment rate in China ticked up. So, I mean, it wasn't really peaches and cream. And if anything, we might even find that, 2 or 3 months down the road, we mysteriously find out that actually this non-farm payrolls number that headline wise is going to, sort of, in the public's eyes be, oh, this is awesome. But we actually find down the road that these numbers are revised lower down the road. That wouldn't surprise me at all. And then an interesting anecdote to all of this, and probably the biggest problem about all of this, is you notice that average hourly earnings, and remember it goes cost push, demand pull. A lot of people are now going to blame the trade unions and blame the working stiffs who desperately need raises to try and survive in this absolute insane hyperinflation world. They're going to blame them for the inflation. And that's exactly what you see here, is that the workers just trying to survive, they're demanding higher wages, which means how on earth can the Fed lower interest rates in the face of this 3.9% annual rate increase? This is supposed to be going down, not up. So unfortunately, when in the face of that, it's going to be awfully tough for them to justify lowering rates. And I think that's another reason why you're seeing the stock market, the broader market actually floundering here. This is once again probably another anecdote of sort of a tale of two economies, K-shaped recovery. You probably remember hearing about that in the past, where you can see the Russell 2000. This is basically the broader economy. It's not really doing a hell of a lot here. It's actually down on the day, and there's the NASDAQ. And the silly Zuckerbergs and the Allens of the world all just booming higher. Interesting though, as I pointed out, the Dow is kind of just sort of, I don't know what the hell to do in the face of this. So yeah, funny world we're living in. As you can see, pretty dramatic response in the marketplace right across the board to those econs this morning. Bonds happier. So our whole inflation deflation conversation is interesting to see that we had talked recently about us banging up against this predominant trend line in the inflation deflation gauge I like to follow on the site. And we're backing off as the bonds are feeling a little bit happier. You see the 10-year US Treasury backing off here. So do we have a resumption in this heading lower? I suppose a big part of that is, what do energy prices do, and do they start calming down? And I think you can see that, yeah, energy is just kind of going sideways up here. We hit a pretty significant technical level, and I think the energy market's just sort of pausing right now. It is interesting to see gold and silver just taking off like a rocket here. And in this kind of low growth environment, and I remember a decade or two, well, I guess maybe 10, 15 years ago, we went through a period which was really interesting where you had the bonds, the yen, and gold and Apple. And maybe let's take the yen out of that. Bonds, gold, and Apple all moved up in unison for a very long period of time. And I'm wondering whether we're going to go back into that kind of environment. Gold doing well. Of course, I had talked with Ivan there the other day about how silver and copper and a lot of the base metals were all coming out of their sort of seasonal troughs. And you can see silver jumping up here smartly. Um, and of course, you can see the bonds, they're a lot happier. That inflation deflation gauge seems to be calming down. Of course, there's our tech stocks. I think Apple's in all that mix. They're doing very well here. Um, US dollar itself, geez, looking a little bit heavy here. So, maybe we can review that. Unfortunately, we did a pretty big break here recently in the US dollar index. So, in a weird sort of way, I think a lot of the dramatic sort of fireworks out of the yen that we've seen recently should probably calm down a little bit here. Maybe that'll give the dollar the opportunity to stabilize here a little bit. But you can even see with that sort of kind of very meh employment report, you can see they even took the Chinese currency apart here today. Because I think actually with the Chinese data, you can actually justify the central planners, central banksters lowering interest rates in Canada, which probably is not going to help the Canadian dollar much at all right now. But we'll see. Only time will tell. I suppose the final conversation that we'll have here in the free video, and of course we can talk lots about this in the after party. But good old Bitcoin, Bitcoin, Bitcoin. I've been talking to you guys for quite a while about these short setups. In fact, I even put tweets out saying that really, folks, this is about as textbook a short setup as you can possibly get. Reload zones, bear momentum divergences on this push up top here, M structure top. What a big surprise. If anything, the surprise, which was a bit of a pain in the ass, was how long this took to play out. And of course, the whole way along, you've got the crypto kids all going, this is the bottom. This is the bottom. Okay, we go straight up from here. This is the bottom. All right, we're done. We're going straight to the moon every fucking day. But in essence, 27 bars to get from the breakdown to actually profit objectives hit on this 2-to-1. Point I think here now is had you taken this double top, 2-to-1 has been hit. Should probably let half of it go. Move your stop to scratch. I might even argue you could use the 3 high-low method, 1, 2, 3. So we'd probably have our stops right now on the trailing position right up against these highs and just let this thing work. I've been talking to you guys for quite a while about moving average sandwiches. I think what's happened here is that basically they brought the market down into a whole bunch of liquidity pools. Probably had a bunch of players that had stop loss orders down here. Any longtime safe member has heard me in this refrain. I think that this was, and then we went after the stops kind of conversation here today. Once they did clean out all these stops and they hunted all this liquidity, then the question ultimately is, okay, was this just a stop run FU within a ranging market, or are we actually going to close down below these levels and market smiling at you, look out below. It is Friday, so this weekend should be very interesting. I have been posting, of course, that's if these charts will load, that the weekend picture, the weekly picture, beg your pardon, it's looking a little suspect here. So, if on a weekly basis we do actually end up closing below here on Bitcoin, I think the uptrend is done, which of course none of you want to hear, but it is what it is. In the 2016 correction happened following that halving event. Um, the market actually did pretty substantial technical correction following that halving event. They did a pretty substantial technical correction where you had one candle low. We dipped all the way down to the 50% of that entire range. So, really, on balance, I had been thinking that that was what was going to happen. It's just how long has this taken to play out? Remember, this was these charts that we did up of the previous halving, this 2016 halving, and how that sort of ultimate correction down into 50% levels was going to play out. And in a weird sort of way, I hate to say it, folks, but there is the halving event. So pre-halving rally, consolidation. So pre-halving rally, consolidation, halving happens, bit of a counter trend rally back up against the high, halving happens, bit of a counter trend rally back up against the highs, then structural failure and dumperoo. So structural failure, dumperoo. Well, there is the 50% level of this entire range. And, we had a guy on the site a while ago, Colin, and we used to call this the Colin pump chaser zone because he runs his own advisory service. And if you want to run your own advisory service, just come to TRI. We'll teach you how to trade. Man, the things that these people do once they actually learn how to behave in the market is remarkable. So I might argue that really this, A, B, C, D, we could probably even do some Foggenbaums off of these tops, especially this original top, because that technically is still working. Boom. Oh, there's 2.618. Maybe we have to dip a little bit below 50% rules. ABCDs, there's the alt ABCD level. Interesting how 1.618 would line up with that 2.618. And of course, there's good old 50% rule. And I have to say, big shout out to TRI and that crazy guy who used to be a commodities broker and he used to have a commodities advisory service. And he created this thing called the Weekly Commodity Trend Survey. And I got to say, this works even better in crypto because crypto is so volatile and it's just schizophrenic. So we go from really attractive and oversold, and they're throwing the baby out with the bathwater, to really overbought and pretty dangerous. But this thing on Bitcoin has been sitting here in the avoid camp for literally about 3 or 4 months, where that has been our ultimate objective. This is good old Kenny Roberts and 50% rules, and actually really attributable to WD Gann if you really want to go back. And that's what this 50% rule is here, that really naturally, this is exactly where the market is supposed to correct to, if this is healthy and natural. So I was actually pointing out in social media, and well, I suppose we'll talk about this more on Sunday's Broiler Chicken show, that there's two scenarios I think happening here. And unfortunately, if you're a crypto bull, you don't want to hear this, but I'm sorry, I might as well just call a spade a spade. There's no sense in bullshitting you people. First and foremost, do we actually get the market to smile at us here? The fact that we've gone through this low here on an intra-week basis means that, to me, it is smiling at us because I'm a price purist. So just the fact that we did come down here, very bearish sign. I think to all intents and purposes, in the short term, we're in this triangle where I think major resistance is, ironically enough, right back up at 67, 68,000. And support right now is, ironically enough, this market structure trend line low. So what a surprise. We banged into this trend line here and we started to find some support here overnight. I'd also make the argument too that, we've come down an awful long way and we started to break there right on the release of the FOMC minutes, which is so, it's almost cliche because it seems that this is exactly what Bitcoin does, cycle after cycle after cycle. So on the daily chart, there was the FOMC minutes put in the most beautiful little fractal top. And of course, Julian has been warning everybody that, this is really dangerous. So hats off to Julian and his analysis. But on the fractal top, on the release of the Fed minutes, the market just puked out. And I might make the argument that we've probably gone too far now here on the puke out. And interesting to see, oh, look at the little W that's come in here now after this massive puke out here. So I actually would expect, usually the rule is that the big boys actually break last. So the fact that the crypto market, the total crypto market, has kind of been in correction meltdown mode. I mean, you could make the argument here that, even today's lows, the crypto market now has corrected about 35% from the peak to where we are now. And as we said earlier, 50% is usually, WD Gann 101. And he would actually say 50% from the actual high itself. So, maybe our ultimate bottom is somewhere down in that area, which would make perfect sense because you know how much Brian loves his 78.6s. We got a 4.669 here. We got a 2.618 here. We got bear ABCDs coming in. If we did alt ABCDs, the 127s, 1.618s, probably all down in this area. And of course, long-term trend line support. But I think that we just went through a capitulatory dump. And, one of the reasons why I actually think that this was a capitulation bottom that was just put in here was, what was the reason for this dump, right? The reason was, well, the country of Germany is selling its Bitcoins. Okay. Is that anything to do with the Bitcoin fundamental story? Is it like, well, the reason why price is dumping is because the blockchain just broke and nobody has any faith in blockchain technology anymore? No, it's nothing to do with that at all. It's some third party came out, and probably it was very scripted and very coordinated. Keep in mind, and actually we shared this on the site the other day. This was really funny. I mean, it's kind of a side, and I've been talking way too long here anyway. I should probably wind this up. But as kind of a funny aside, and if you want to do yourself a favor, I actually think this gentleman's actually very intelligent, and I would respect what he has to say just simply by the fact that he's wearing a three-piece suit, and he tells us all, of course, that because he's wearing a three-piece suit, that means he's smart. Which I always find amusing. But anyway, the point being that this gentleman here, you want to actually learn from a European too. So this is a European, but you want to learn how utterly corrupt the European and the central. And it's funny, he even picks apart the central bank and Lagarde, how Lagarde constantly is lying, and you can literally catch her in her lies. She's just she's a lawyer. And we used to, when I was in the brokerage business, we used to call lawyers liars. They're professional paid liars. That's what they do, which is hilarious. But anyway, the point being, really, really good conversation with this guy. So it doesn't really surprise me that they want to break sort of the story, especially Europeans. Lagarde, have you ever seen that guy that's as big as a fucking house that works for the Bank of International Settlements? I mean, these people detest crypto. They hate crypto. So it doesn't really surprise me that Germany came out and just totally crapped on the crypto market. But I would make an argument that really has very little to do with Bitcoin. And if anything, it was almost sort of the last capitulatory shoe. Bitcoin, I've always told you guys that when the altcoins go absolutely crazy rallying, it's almost like Bitcoin at some point goes, hey, I'm the big boy here. I should be rallying. And all of a sudden Bitcoin takes off and, everybody's like, woohoo, but that's usually the end of the move. And I would make the argument that exactly the same thing happens on the flip side. And so it just feels to me, this is just a 4-hour chart, but it feels to me like, well, they've done the damage. The market broke. It's ugly. It's evil. We've come down, hit 2.618. And then all of a sudden, mysteriously, you get a non-crypto news event that comes and just sort of final kicked in the nuts for crypto. To me, that sounds like a capitulation. So I wouldn't be surprised. Where am I going with all this? And keep in mind, I've told you guys repeatedly that usually Bitcoin and crypto in particular loves to pivot through that July 4th holiday weekend. And I think we just saw that. It's too early to get bullish here, way too early. And because of the technical damage that we're doing off the higher time frame charts, whatever kind of rally we have here through the summer, keep in mind, here is the next eclipse window where I think actually we get our next major pivot in the market. But I wouldn't be surprised if, something like Bitcoin actually works its way back up over the next month or two, right back into resistance. I don't think that this is like end of the world, the market collapse. I might actually make the argument that we're now banging into support levels. And I would even watch this low really closely for some sort of capitulation kind of bottoming here. I think it's a little bit too early to get bullish. But at the same time, too, what I'm noticing is there are some cryptos that are actually bucking the overall trend. And I've talked to you all about, of course, over the years about things like trade location, indicator confirmation, W's in price, and up she goes. And ironically enough, actually, Chris was helping me out a little bit, working a few orders. And on this dump, I actually got filled on a couple buy orders that I've been wanting to buy for like literally 6 months now. So actually, I'm quite pleased at what's happening here. They're throwing the baby out with the bathwater. And I think that there's some absolutely incredible discounts. Now, you can take this sort of little old lady approach and just nanny nibble, just nibble away. A lot of these names don't have W's working right now, and quote unquote buys. I don't think we're quite there yet. But are they throwing the baby out with the bathwater? Can you get some really cheap assets right now? To do your dollar cost averaging kind of idea, nanny nibbles, little old ladies. I think there's absolutely some incredible deals. And interestingly enough, here's another example that even in the face of Bitcoin and a lot of these altcoins doing that, look at this son of a bitch. We even talked about this the other day. Why is that happening down here? So I think there are stories, and this is in that metaverse, so not a big surprise. You could argue this is like a little proxy on Meta stock doing better. So okay, there's your free report here for the day. Of course, we'll have fun in the after party. Wow, gave you a really long report here today. So if anything, consider it my gift to all of you that you got twice as much as what I was supposed to be doing here. But I'm having a really screwy day here anyway, so consider it my gift to you. Now, let's head on over to the after party. And let's have some fun digging into some all these various different topics in earnest. All right, have yourselves a great day. We'll see everybody for broiler chickens. Come on over for the after party if you can. We'd love to have you part of the community and part of the site. And in a weird sort of way, I've been talking to you about this for quite some time. If you have the opportunity, now's the time to be accumulating a lot of these pieces of crap because everybody in the public is the exact opposite. And they're running for the hills. So anyway, have yourselves a great day. All the best, hugs and kisses. And the only thing I have Brian to say to you is bye for now.